In science class, I asked my students to make sense of the world using evidence. So when it came to our classroom culture and how we worked and learned together, it finally clicked for me. Shouldn't we be using evidence there too? That's why I started collecting anonymous reflection data from my students. Because without data, deciding what we need to work on as a class can feel totally random. One student says, "We need to ask more questions." Another says, "No, I think we're doing fine." And when I step in to choose a focus, suddenly it's, well, she just tells us what to do. And that's when the buy-in disappears. But when we base our classroom decisions on actual evidence from everyone, it changes everything. The conversation shifts. The data gives us something neutral, something honest to base decisions on. It's not personal. It's not arbitrary. It's just, what are we noticing together? So here's what this looks like for me. Once a week, I ask students to complete short anonymous check-ins that I give using a simple Google form. It's quick and simple and asks just a few questions about how we are sharing ideas throughout the class. This is not just about whole class discussions like science circles. It's about all those moments when we are communicating, whether that's with a small group, a partner, or even whole group. It asks things like, did you share an idea with the whole class? Or did you use hand gestures? Or did you build on someone else's ideas? When the responses come in, I don't just look at them on my own. I bring the data back to the class. I show them the graphs of their responses and ask, what do you notice? What's working well? Where might we want to grow? And when the students are making decisions based on their data, what they think is important, that's where the power is. 1 week, the data showed that while most students were using hand gestures to show agreement, only a few were actually sharing their ideas. It wasn't me pointing that out. They saw it. And right away they said, that's it. We need to get more voices in the room. Our next class goal was to get everyone to share at least one time per day. Sometimes we'll track the goal over a few weeks and compare the data. That way, students can actually see their progress and reflect on what helped. I'll hear things like, I used a sentence starter today, or it felt easier after our small group. And honestly, those moments, that's where real ownership kicks in. Now, of course, there are times when we don't meet our goal. That's when I say, okay, what's getting in our way? The key part is that those ideas can't just come from me. I need to work with what they tell me. For example, with one class, we said the goal was to build on each other's ideas, but then they were really struggling. So I suggested we had to break it down into smaller steps to get there. The students suggested 3 ways of how to build on each other's ideas. One strategy was to say, I want to add on. A second was to use the hand signal. And a third was to say, I agree with blank or disagree with blank because. And we jotted these ideas under our goal in our notebook. The important thing is, we don't treat this like a failure. We treat it like a puzzle, one we solve together. And there's solid research behind this too. It shows that when students are seen as active participants in their learning, with the right supports, they can really identify meaningful, productive goals. They start to make decisions about what and how they learn, reflect on their progress, and connect new ideas to things they've experienced or care about. I've seen that play out in my classroom. When students help name the goals and we use data to track them, they're more invested and they start thinking more about their own learning, not just what they're supposed to do next. So if you're curious about where to start, try collecting just one piece of reflection data with your class. See what your students notice. You might be surprised by how quickly it shifts the conversation and the culture.